My son needs an ambulance, and you are looking at my skin instead of his injury." Marcus Reed's voice cut through the rain with a calm that made the words feel heavier than a shout. Water streamed from the shoulders of his dark wool coat as he stood beside the damaged SUV, one hand raised where Officer Ryan Cole could see it, the other pointing toward 12-year-old Ethan, who sat trembling against his mother beneath the open passenger door. The boy's forehead had been covered with a clean white cloth, but a small red stain was slowly spreading through the fabric. Danielle Reed held him close, whispering that help was coming, though the uncertainty in her eyes told a different story. Red and blue lights flashed across the wet highway, painting the family in alternating colors while traffic hissed past on the other side of the guardrail. The nearest town was 6 miles away. The temperature had dropped below 40 degrees. Every second mattered. Yet Officer Cole had not called for medical assistance. He had not asked Ethan where he hurt. He had not searched the road for the pickup truck that had forced the Reed family into the ditch. Instead, he stood several feet from Marcus with one hand resting near his belt and suspicion already settled across his face. "Before we do anything," Cole said, "I need to know who owns this vehicle." Marcus stared at him for a moment, almost certain he had misheard. Behind him, Ethan released a weak breath and leaned harder against his mother. Danielle's voice shook. "Officer, our son is hurt. Please call an ambulance." Cole glanced at her, then at the polished black SUV with out-of-state plates. "Ma'am, I heard you. But stories change when people get nervous." The rain struck the roof like impatient fingers. Officer Daniel Brooks, Cole's younger partner, stood near the patrol car holding a flashlight. His beam moved from the tire tracks in the mud to Ethan's pale face, then back to Cole. He looked ready to speak, but remained silent. Marcus noticed. He noticed everything. The hesitation, the assumptions, the way Cole studied his watch, his coat, and his car before looking at the frightened child. "My license and registration are in the glove compartment," Marcus said. "You may check them after you request medical support." Cole's expression tightened. "You do not tell me how to conduct an investigation." Marcus took one slow breath. He had spent 23 years learning what authority was supposed to look like. It was not this. Authority did not delay compassion. It did not turn fear into guilt or suffering into suspicion. But tonight, Marcus was not wearing a uniform. There was no driver waiting nearby, no city staff, no visible badge announcing the position he would officially assume the next morning. To Cole, he was simply a black man beside an expensive vehicle on a dark road. "Dad," Ethan whispered. Marcus turned slightly, and the control in his face nearly broke. "I'm right here, son." Cole raised his voice. "Keep your eyes on me." The command hung in the cold air. Danielle looked up in disbelief. Brooks lowered his flashlight. Somewhere beneath the front passenger seat, Ethan's phone continued recording, its screen cracked, but its tiny red timer still moving. 3 hours earlier, Havenport had looked almost peaceful. The rain had not yet arrived, and the last light of evening rested over the downtown buildings in long bands of gold. Marcus Reed stood in the hallway of a modest rental house, adjusting the collar of his navy jacket, while Danielle called from the kitchen that they were going to miss their reservation. For most men, the next morning would have felt impossible to ignore. Marcus was scheduled to stand beside the mayor, raise his right hand, and become the first black police commissioner in the city's history. Reporters had already gathered outside City Hall. Senior officers had spent the week preparing speeches. Every conversation seemed to begin with the same question about reform, accountability, and whether one man could truly change a department known for protecting its own. But inside that house, Marcus was not thinking about cameras or command. He was thinking about Ethan. His son had turned 12 that day, and Marcus had promised him one ordinary evening before public life changed everything. No security detail, no city vehicle, no staff members answering. Phones between dinner courses. Just a father, a mother, and their son. Ethan came down the stairs wearing a green sweater Danielle had chosen for him, carrying the new baseball glove Marcus had wrapped that morning. "Do I have to call you commissioner now?" he asked with a grin. Marcus smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Only if you want extra chores." Danielle laughed from the doorway, and for a moment, the weight of the coming day disappeared. They drove 10 miles into the city in Marcus's black sport utility vehicle, talking about school, baseball, and the chocolate cake waiting at the restaurant. Ethan asked whether being commissioner meant Marcus could make every officer obey him. Marcus glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Leadership is not about making people obey, he said. It is about making sure the people with power listen to the people without it. Ethan considered that answer with the seriousness only a 12-year-old could give. Even when nobody important is watching? Marcus nodded. Especially then. Danielle reached across the center console and squeezed his hand. She knew those words were not rehearsed. Marcus had spent 23 years watching good officers carry impossible burdens and bad officers hide behind silence. He had accepted the Havenport position because the city needed more than new policies. It needed a new definition of loyalty, one that placed truth above reputation. In the inside pocket of his jacket, he carried a sealed letter from the mayor confirming his appointment. He had planned to leave it at home, but Danielle had slipped it into his coat before they left. For luck, she had said. Dinner lasted longer than expected. Ethan made a wish over 12 candles, then refused to tell either parent what it was. By the time they stepped outside, the temperature had fallen to 38 degrees, and clouds had covered the sky. The first drops began tapping against the windshield as Marcus pulled onto the highway. Danielle turned on the radio softly. Ethan leaned against the window, tired and happy, his new baseball glove resting in his lap. Then, 2 miles beyond the city limits, headlights appeared behind them. A dark pickup truck moved closer than it should have. Marcus changed lanes. The truck followed. He slowed down. It stayed behind him. The rain grew heavier, and the bright beams filled the mirrors with white glare. Marcus sat straighter, both hands steady on the wheel. Danielle looked over and saw the change in his face. "What is it?" she asked. Marcus watched the truck close the distance again. "I do not know," he said quietly. "But keep Ethan calm." Marcus eased the sport utility vehicle into the right lane and reduced his speed to 50 miles per hour, hoping the pickup truck would pass. It did not. The headlights remained fixed in the rearview mirror, too close and too bright, turning the rain on the back window into a sheet of silver. Ethan lifted his head from the glass. "Is that truck following us?" he asked. Danielle turned slightly in her seat, keeping her voice calm. "Just keep your seatbelt on, honey." Marcus checked the road ahead. The highway curved through a wooded stretch with no businesses, no gas stations, and no houses visible beyond the dark tree line. His phone showed only 1 bar of service. He reached for it without taking his eyes off the road and handed it to Danielle. "Call emergency services," he said quietly. She pressed the screen, but before the call connected, the truck moved to the left and pulled alongside them. Its windows were dark. Mud covered the rear license plate. Marcus could make out the outline of the driver, but not the face. For several seconds, both vehicles traveled side by side through the rain. Then the truck drifted toward them. Marcus moved right, keeping the tires just inside the white shoulder line. "Dad," Ethan said, his voice smaller now. "I know," Marcus replied. "Stay with your mother." The truck dropped back, then moved forward again. This time its front corner came dangerously close to the rear of the Reed family vehicle. Marcus felt a sharp jolt through the steering wheel. The sport utility vehicle swerved. Danielle gripped the dashboard. Ethan cried out. Marcus corrected the wheel, but the wet pavement gave him little room. The right tires slipped onto the muddy shoulder, and the vehicle slid down a shallow embankment before coming to a hard stop against a roadside barrier. For one long second, there was only the ticking of the engine and the rain striking the roof. Marcus turned immediately. "Danielle." She nodded, breathing fast. "I am all right." Ethan was holding one hand near his forehead. A small cut had opened above his eyebrow, and fear had drained the color from his face. "Do not move too quickly," Marcus said. His own heart was pounding, but his voice remained steady. He checked Ethan's eyes, asked him his name, and made sure he could answer clearly. Danielle pulled a clean cloth from her purse and pressed it gently against the cut. Outside, the pickup truck slowed near the top of the embankment. Its brake lights glowed red through the rain. Marcus looked up just in time to see it accelerate and disappear around the curve. Danielle's call finally connected. She gave the dispatcher their location, described Ethan's condition, and explained that another vehicle had forced them off the highway. The signal cut in and out. The dispatcher repeated the mile marker twice, then the call dropped. Marcus tried his own phone, but the screen showed no service. He stepped outside into the cold rain and looked back toward the road. Fresh tire marks crossed the shoulder. One broken piece of dark plastic lay near the guardrail, likely from the pickup truck. Marcus picked it up and placed it carefully in the cargo area. Evidence mattered. Details mattered. Somewhere behind him, Ethan's phone had fallen beneath the front passenger seat. Its camera was still running, capturing the sound of rain, the family's voices, and the distant engine of the truck fading into the night. Marcus opened the passenger door and helped Danielle guide Ethan out of the vehicle. They had barely reached the shoulder when red and blue lights appeared in the distance. Relief moved across Danielle's face. Marcus raised one hand so the approaching officer could see them. At that moment, he still believed the hardest part of the night was over. The patrol car stopped on the shoulder above the embankment, its lights washing over the wet trees and the damaged vehicle below. Officer Ryan Cole stepped out first, pulling his rain jacket closed as he looked down at Marcus, Danielle, and Ethan. Officer Daniel Brooks followed with a flashlight, moving more carefully toward the family. Marcus raised his voice just enough to be heard over the storm. "My son is injured. We need medical assistance." Cole did not answer the request. His eyes moved from Marcus to the black sport utility vehicle, then to the out-of-state license plate. "Who was driving?" he asked. "I was," Marcus said. "A dark pickup truck forced us off the road. The rear plate was covered, and it left the scene heading east." Brooks aimed his flashlight toward the tire marks near the guardrail. "There are fresh tracks here," he said. Cole barely looked. "We will get to that." Danielle tightened the cloth against Ethan's forehead. "Please call an ambulance. He is dizzy." Brooks looked at the boy and reached toward the radio on his shoulder, but Cole lifted one hand. "Not yet. We need to understand what happened first." Marcus felt the words settle heavily inside him. "You have a child who needs help and a vehicle that fled the scene. That is what happened first." Cole's expression hardened. "Sir, you need to watch your tone." The rain ran down Marcus's face, but he did not move. "My tone is not the emergency." For a moment, only the storm spoke. Brooks looked away. Cole stepped closer to the sport utility vehicle and shined his flashlight through the windows. Birthday wrapping paper lay on the back seat beside Ethan's new baseball glove. A restaurant box rested on the floor. Nothing about the scene suggested danger, yet Cole continued to search it as if he expected the family itself to be the problem. "Registration," he said. Marcus pointed toward the glove compartment. "It is inside. I will retrieve it after someone calls for medical support." Cole turned sharply. "You will retrieve it when I tell you to retrieve it." Danielle stared at him. "Officer, why are you treating us like suspects?" Cole glanced at her, then back at Marcus. "Because I have 3 people in a high-value vehicle with out-of-state plates, no visible second vehicle, and a story about a truck nobody else has seen." Marcus looked toward the broken plastic piece he had secured in the cargo area. "There is physical evidence. There are tracks on the road. My wife spoke to a dispatcher." "Calls drop all the time," Cole said. "People say all kinds of things when they think it will help them." Brooks shifted his weight. "Ryan, I can request medical and still run the plate." Cole gave him a warning look. "I said we will handle one thing at a time." Ethan closed his eyes and leaned against Danielle. Marcus saw the movement and stepped toward him. Cole immediately held out an arm. "Stay where you are." Marcus stopped. His voice became quieter. "That is my son, and this is my scene," Cole replied. "You do not move until I know who you are and whether that vehicle belongs to you." The sentence struck Danielle harder than the rain. She looked at the family car, then at Cole, understanding exactly what he had decided before checking a single fact. Marcus understood too. Cole had seen a black family beside an expensive vehicle and built his investigation around suspicion instead of service. Brooks lowered his flashlight toward Ethan again. The boy's breathing had become shallow, and the color had faded from his lips. Brooks looked at Cole, then at the radio on his shoulder. His silence was becoming a choice. Marcus held Cole's gaze and said, "You are standing between an injured child and the help he needs. Think carefully about what you do next." Cole held Marcus's gaze for another second, then turned toward the sport utility vehicle as if the injured boy were an inconvenience he could place in the background. "Open it," he said. Marcus did not move. "Call for medical assistance." Cole exhaled through his nose and looked at Brooks. "Run the plate." Brooks reached for the computer inside the patrol car, but his eyes stayed on Ethan. Danielle had lowered herself beside the boy, shielding him from the rain with her own body. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted the cloth against his forehead. "Ethan, stay with me," she said softly. "Tell me what you had for dinner." Ethan swallowed. "Cheeseburger. And what did you wish for?" He tried to smile. I cannot tell you. The answer should have brought relief. Instead, his voice sounded thinner than before. Marcus felt every instinct inside him telling him to cross the distance and take his son into his arms, but Cole remained positioned between them, treating movement as defiance. Officer Cole, Marcus said, carefully controlling each word. You have enough information to request help. Cole looked back at him. You seem very familiar with procedure. I am familiar with responsibility. That response made Brooks pause beside the patrol car. Cole noticed. His mouth tightened. People who have nothing to hide usually cooperate. Marcus glanced at the tire marks above them, the damaged rear panel of the vehicle, and the child sitting in the rain. Cooperation does not require surrendering common sense. Cole stepped closer. Here is what I see. An expensive vehicle. Out-of-state registration. A driver who does not want me checking it. And a family expecting special treatment. Danielle looked up, disbelief giving way to anger. Special treatment? We are asking you to call an ambulance. Cole ignored her. He pointed toward the vehicle. Open the glove compartment. Marcus slowly reached inside his jacket for the key fob. As he did, the sealed appointment letter slipped from his inner pocket and fell into the muddy water near Cole's boots. The white envelope landed face up. The city seal was visible beneath the rain, along with the words Office of the Mayor. Cole glanced down but did not bend to read it. Instead, he stepped forward, pressing the envelope deeper into the mud. Marcus watched without reacting. He had spent years studying moments like this, the quiet ones that revealed more than any formal interview ever could. The officer was not interested in truth. He was interested in control. Brooks returned from the patrol car. The plate comes back registered to Marcus Reed, he said. No alerts. No theft report. Insurance is current. Cole frowned, unwilling to let the facts change the story he had already chosen. Run the vehicle identification number 2. Brooks hesitated. Ryan, the registration matches his license. Cole's voice dropped. Do it. A pair of headlights slowed on the opposite side of the highway. A woman inside the passing car raised her phone toward the scene before driving on. Cole noticed and shifted his body, but another vehicle had already stopped several yards behind the patrol car. A man stepped out beneath an umbrella and began recording from a safe distance. Everything all right down there, he called. Cole shouted back that the scene was under control. Marcus looked at Ethan. The boy's eyes were closed now. Danielle touched his cheek. Ethan. He opened them slowly, but his breathing remained uneven. Brooks looked at the child, then at Cole, and something in his expression changed. I am requesting medical, he said. Cole turned toward him. I did not authorize that. Brooks lifted the radio anyway. Dispatch, send emergency medical services to mile marker 42. Juvenile patient, possible head injury, conscious but disoriented. The response came through immediately. Help was on the way. Cole stared at Brooks as if betrayal had occurred, but Marcus knew the truth. For the first time that night, someone wearing a badge had remembered what the badge was for. Beneath the passenger seat, Ethan's phone continued recording every word. The radio call changed the air around them. Brooks had spoken only a few words, but the silence afterward felt enormous. Cole stared at his partner, rain collecting along the brim of his hat. Cancel that request, he said. Brooks kept the radio near his mouth. The request is already active. Then tell dispatch the patient is stable. Danielle looked up sharply. You have not examined him. Cole ignored her and stepped toward Brooks. I am the senior officer on this scene. Brooks lowered the radio, but he did not back away. And there is a 12-year-old boy who may need medical care. Marcus watched the exchange with a steadiness that hid the pressure building inside his chest. He had seen fear wear many faces during his career. Sometimes it looked like anger. Sometimes it looked like obedience. Tonight, it looked like a young officer deciding whether loyalty meant protecting a colleague or protecting a child. Ethan shifted against Danielle and whispered that the lights were hurting his eyes. Marcus moved toward him. Cole immediately stepped across his path. I told you to stay where you are. Marcus stopped less than 3 feet away. My son is getting worse. Medical assistance is coming, Cole said. So there is no reason for you to interfere with my investigation. Marcus looked past him toward Ethan. Danielle's face had gone pale. He needs his father, she said. Cole's answer came without hesitation. He needs everyone to cooperate. Imagine standing in cold rain while your child struggles to remain alert, knowing that the person closest to a radio is more concerned with winning an argument than answering a cry for help. Marcus felt anger rise, but he refused to let it choose his words. Officer Cole, move aside. Cole placed one hand against Marcus's shoulder, not with force, but with enough intention to make the warning clear. You do not give orders here. Brooks took a step forward. Ryan, let him check on his son. Cole turned his head. Stay out of this. That moment was enough. Marcus moved around Cole and knelt beside Ethan. He checked the boy's breathing and asked him to follow the movement of his finger. Ethan tried, but his eyes lost focus for a second. Danielle gripped Marcus's sleeve. He is getting colder. Marcus removed his coat and wrapped it around his son. The appointment letter remained in the mud several feet away, its seal barely visible beneath Cole's boot print. Cole walked toward them, his voice rising. Sir, stand up now. Marcus did not look at him. My son comes first. You are obstructing an active investigation. Marcus finally turned. His expression had changed. The worried father was still there, but something else now stood beside him, something disciplined and unmistakable. Then document every decision you are making, he said. Document the time you arrived. Document when medical assistance was requested. Document why you delayed it. And document why you ignored evidence of a fleeing vehicle. Cole hesitated. Brooks looked at Marcus with new attention. Those were not the words of a frightened civilian guessing at procedure. They were precise, familiar, commanding without being loud. Cole recovered. Quickly, you think knowing a few official terms makes you important? Marcus held his gaze. No, I think what you do when you believe someone is not important reveals exactly who you are. In the distance, a siren began to rise above the rain. At the same time, another voice broke through Brooks's radio. Dispatch reported that a command vehicle was approaching from the east with Captain Laura Bennett and representatives from the mayor's office. Cole's posture shifted. He looked toward the highway, confused by the sudden arrival of senior leadership. Brooks looked down at the muddy envelope, then back at Marcus. Slowly, the pieces began to connect. Marcus placed one hand on Ethan's shoulder and listened as the sirens drew closer. The 7 minutes were almost over. The first ambulance arrived from the west, its headlights cutting through the rain as it pulled onto the shoulder. 2 paramedics stepped out and moved quickly toward Ethan, carrying a medical bag and a folded blanket. Cole opened his mouth as if to control the scene, but Brooks spoke first. 12-year-old male, possible head injury, dizziness, delayed response. One paramedic knelt beside Ethan while the other asked Danielle a series of calm questions. Marcus stayed close, one hand resting on his son's shoulder until the paramedic assured him they had control. We are going to take good care of him, she said. You can ride with us. Danielle nodded, relief and fear crossing her face at the same time. Before Marcus could answer, 2 Black City vehicles stopped behind the patrol car. Captain Laura Bennett emerged from the first, followed by Helen Ward, the mayor's chief of staff. Bennett moved with the focused pace of someone expecting a traffic emergency. Then she saw Marcus kneeling in the mud without his coat. She saw Danielle beside the paramedics. She saw Ethan wrapped in a gray emergency blanket. Her expression changed. Cole straightened immediately and adjusted his rain jacket. Captain, I was securing the scene when the driver became uncooperative. The vehicle has out-of-state plates, and there are inconsistencies in his account. Bennett did not look at him. She walked past Cole and stopped beside Marcus. Commissioner Reed, she said, her voice low with concern. Are you and your family all right? The title moved through the rain like a sudden change in temperature. Brooks became completely still. Helen Ward hurried forward and placed a hand over her mouth when she saw Ethan. Cole stared at Marcus as though the man in front of him had changed, though nothing about Marcus had changed at all. Same wet clothes, same controlled voice, same worried eyes. Only the knowledge had changed. Commissioner, Cole repeated. Bennett finally turned toward him. Marcus Reed is scheduled to take command of this department tomorrow morning. Cole looked toward the muddy envelope near his feet. The city seal was visible now beneath the water. For several seconds, he said nothing. The confidence that had filled every sentence disappeared, replaced by hurried calculation. Sir, I did not realize who you were. Marcus slowly stood. Rain ran from his hair and down the collar of his shirt. Behind him, the paramedics lifted Ethan onto a stretcher with careful, measured movements. Danielle remained at their son's side. Marcus watched until the ambulance doors were ready, then faced Cole. His voice stayed quiet. That is the problem. Cole swallowed. There was confusion at the scene. I was following procedure. No, Marcus said. You were following an assumption. Bennett looked from Cole to Brooks. When was medical assistance requested? Brooks answered after a brief pause. Several minutes after we arrived. I made the call. Why was there a delay? Bennett asked. Brooks looked at Cole, then lowered his eyes. Officer Cole wanted to verify the vehicle before requesting assistance. Cole stepped forward. Captain, that is not a fair description. Marcus raised one hand, and the argument stopped. He did not need to shout. Officer Cole, answer one question. Cole looked at him. Would you have called for help sooner if you had known my position? The rain softened, leaving only the idling engines and the faint sound of the ambulance radio. Cole opened his mouth, but no answer came. Marcus held his gaze. My son should not need a powerful father to be treated. Like his life matters. Helen Ward looked toward the witness recording from the roadside. Brooks looked at the ground. Bennett's expression hardened with disappointment. Cole finally tried to speak. Commissioner Reed, I can explain. Marcus glanced toward the ambulance where Danielle waited for him. You will have the opportunity, he said. But tonight, every decision you made will be preserved. Your body camera, the patrol vehicle recording, dispatch logs, witness video, and every word spoken here. Cole's face lost its color. Marcus stepped toward the ambulance, then paused. Do not remove his badge yet, he told Bennett. Secure the evidence. Follow the process exactly. Justice cannot become personal simply because the victim has authority. Bennett nodded. Understood, Commissioner. As Marcus climbed into the ambulance beside his family, Cole remained beneath the flashing lights, surrounded by the same officers he had expected to impress. Minutes earlier, he had demanded to know who Marcus Reed was. Now he understood that the more important question was what kind of officer he had revealed himself to be when he believed Marcus was nobody. By midnight, Ethan had been examined at Havenport Medical Center and placed under observation. The doctor told Marcus and Danielle that their son was alert, stable, and expected to recover fully with rest. Relief entered the room slowly, almost cautiously, as if the family was afraid to trust good news after everything the night had taken from them. Ethan slept beneath a warm blanket while Danielle sat beside him, one hand wrapped around his. Marcus stood near the window, watching rain slide down the glass, when Captain Bennett called. The evidence review had begun. The patrol vehicle recording confirmed the delay. Dispatch records showed that Cole had arrived 7 minutes before Brooks requested medical assistance. The roadside witness had already submitted his video. Then Bennett mentioned the phone found beneath the passenger seat of the damaged vehicle. Ethan's camera had recorded more than the confrontation. It had captured the pickup truck following them before the crash, including a brief reflection of the rear window when lightning illuminated the road. Investigators enhanced the image and found part of a contractor decal on the truck's side panel. By sunrise, the vehicle had been located behind a storage facility 12 miles outside the city. It belonged to Travis Mercer, the cousin of Sergeant Paul Mercer, a Havenport officer whose disciplinary record Marcus had requested during his transition review. That fact alone could have been coincidence. The messages found on Cole's department phone made coincidence impossible. At 7:42 that evening, 19 minutes before the Reed family left the restaurant, Cole had received a message from Sergeant Mercer. It said that Reed might be traveling without security and instructed Cole to keep him delayed if he appeared on the East Highway. Cole had responded with 2 words. Understood, Sergeant. Bennett read the message twice before speaking again. We do not have evidence that Cole knew a collision would happen, she told Marcus. But he knew your family might be targeted, and he still chose to treat you as the problem. Marcus looked toward Ethan. The boy's birthday sweater had been folded inside a clear hospital bag. The sight of it made the meaning of the message feel painfully simple. Cole had not merely failed to recognize an emergency. He had allowed loyalty to a corrupt officer and prejudice against a black family to shape every choice he made. Secure every device, Marcus said. No internal conversations. No warnings. Bring in outside investigators. Bennett agreed. By morning, Sergeant Mercer had been placed on administrative leave. Travis Mercer was questioned about the pickup truck. Cole was relieved of duty pending a criminal and departmental investigation. Brooks gave a full statement, including the moment he realized Cole was intentionally delaying assistance. He admitted that he had remained silent longer than he should have. I kept waiting for him to correct himself, Brooks said during the interview. Then I understood that waiting was part of the harm. That sentence stayed with Marcus. Systems did not survive only because cruel people acted. They survived because uncertain people waited. The investigation widened over the next 48 hours. Former complaints against Cole resurfaced, including reports from black motorists who said he questioned ownership before offering help. Several cases had been closed without meaningful review. Sergeant Mercer's messages revealed a private group of officers who believed Marcus's promised reforms threatened their control. They had discussed discrediting him before his first day in office. They expected arrogance, anger, or scandal. Instead, they had created evidence. Marcus refused private retaliation. He asked the state attorney general and an independent civil rights unit to oversee the case. "This cannot be handled as an insult against me," he said. "It must be handled as a failure of public trust." Cole had once believed the badge would protect his decisions from scrutiny. Now every delay, every message, and every ignored plea had become part of a record he could no longer control. 3 weeks later, morning sunlight filled the assembly hall at Havenport Police Headquarters, touching the polished floor and the rows of officers standing in silence. The ceremony had been delayed until Ethan was home, rested, and strong enough to attend. He sat in the front row between Danielle and Helen Ward, a small bandage still visible above his eyebrow. His new baseball glove rested in his lap. Marcus stood near the city flag with one hand raised as the mayor administered the oath of office. When the final words were spoken, applause rose through the room, but Marcus did not smile immediately. He looked at his family first. Ethan gave him a quiet nod. Only then did Marcus turn toward the department he had been chosen to lead. The investigation was still active, but enough had already been confirmed to change the city. Officer Ryan Cole had been dismissed after an independent review found that he had delayed emergency assistance, ignored evidence, and misused his authority. Sergeant Paul Mercer had been charged with obstruction and conspiracy related to the effort to interfere with Marcus's arrival. Travis Mercer had admitted that he followed the Reed family and forced them from the highway. Several supervisors were under review for closing earlier complaints without proper investigation. The truth had not arrived with shouting. It had arrived through recordings, timestamps, messages, and the courage of people who finally stopped looking away. Brooks stood at the back of the hall, uncertain whether he belonged there. Marcus saw him and asked him to step forward. The young officer's face tightened with embarrassment as hundreds of eyes turned toward him. Marcus did not praise him as a hero. He did not excuse his hesitation. "Officer Brooks made the call that brought medical assistance to my son," Marcus said. "But he has also admitted that he waited too long." Brooks lowered his head. Marcus continued, "Accountability is not humiliation. It is the beginning of change." He announced that Brooks would remain on duty under review and would help develop a new intervention program requiring officers to report dangerous decisions immediately, regardless of rank. Then Marcus faced the room. "My son received help because someone finally chose conscience over silence," he said. "But there are families in this city who will never have a mayor's office calling dispatch. They will never have cameras from multiple vehicles. They will never have a father whose name makes senior officials rush to the scene." The hall became completely still. Their lives matter before you know their jobs. Their voices matter before you see their addresses. Their fear matters before you decide whether they look important. Danielle reached for Ethan's hand. Marcus looked across the uniforms before him and remembered the cold highway, the rain, and the officer who had studied his car before looking at his child. "A badge is not permission to decide who deserves urgency," he said. "It is a promise that urgency will not depend on color, wealth, influence, or status." In the months that followed, Havenport created an independent complaint office, public reporting for emergency response delays, and mandatory review of any incident involving denied medical assistance. Old cases were reopened. Families who had once been ignored were invited to speak. Some officers resisted. Others listened. Change did not happen in one ceremony, but it began with a department forced to see what silence had protected. Ethan eventually returned to school and baseball practice. One evening, he asked Marcus whether becoming commissioner had made him more powerful. Marcus looked across the field as the sun lowered behind the bleachers. "No," he said. "It made me more responsible." Ryan Cole had believed his badge allowed him to decide whose crime mattered. In the end, The man he ignored did not use power to destroy him. He used truth to teach an entire department what that badge was supposed to mean.